Welcome to our first virtual graduate research forum on human trafficking and unfree labor, a CenHTRO Future Leaders Program event. Our goal for this event is to provide our graduate students at the University of Georgia and the University of Liverpool an opportunity to network with one another and engage in an interactive academic exchange on their research in human trafficking and unfree labor through a cross-disciplinary lens. This event would not have been possible without the phenomenal collaboration of our planning committee, which includes CenHTRO's Director of Communications, Andre Gallant, University of Liverpool International Partnership Manager, Helen Carlin, who's here with us, the University of Georgia's Director of International Initiatives, Brian Watkins, UGA graduate student Tenshi Kawashima, who's here and will be presenting and facilitating, and University of Liverpool graduate student Ollie Kennedy. To open our event, we are honored to have Professor Alex Balch give a talk on research collaboration and networking. Professor Alex Balch is Professor of Politics at the University of Liverpool, with research interests in policies on immigration and modern slavery. He is Associate Director of Unfree, the African Programming and Research Initiative to End Slavery, and leads the AKN, Anti-Slavery Knowledge Network, which seeks to apply innovative methods to tackle modern slavery across sub-Saharan Africa, funded by the UK government's Global Challenges Research Fund, the GCRF, via the National Arts and Humanities Research Council, AHRC. So now over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for the introduction. Great to be here. Nice to see everyone. Really looking forward to catching some of the presentations. And yeah, it's as Rebecca said, it's brilliant to have you all here and to start off this this idea of bringing people together from UGA and UOL. I'm just going to speak for a few minutes, I think as a sort of scene setter, and I don't want to take up too much time because I'm not presenting sort of substantive research, but I would like to just allow us to sort of reflect a little bit on the value and the benefit of collaboration and networking, you know, especially as a researcher myself who's benefited from collaborations, and you know, where collaboration and partnership has become actually central to my own research agenda. I think it's really important to spend some time reflecting on those things as we you know, try and work together better. So first of all, you know, why is collaboration and networking important for research on human trafficking and unfree labor? I think it's a field and a topic where, you know, these issues are particularly important because we should foreground solidarity, the building of alliances. You know, we need to do things differently. I think it's important, you know, collaboration and collective approaches are important in every topic and every sort of aspect of human endeavor, but I think there is something different about our field of study, you know. So there's a very generalized set of reasons why you might want to work together and network and collaborate, but I think in our field of study, there's specific and really important reasons to think about this. First of all, we're talking about the most severe forms of exploitation and human rights abuses. And these are issues where governments may well be complicit through securitization of borders, or businesses may be complicit through prioritization of profit, either way, rendering people vulnerable to exploitation. There may be legacies of empire. There may be new forms of neo-colonialism. And we know that racism, prejudice, and structural inequalities all play an important role in why people are exploited and how that is sustained, and the reasons why it's not addressed properly. So, you know, these things permeate everything and on all organizations. So as researchers, we need to really work together and form alliances in the face of really quite powerful and possibly insidious forces which may influence how and what we research. So we need to talk to each other. We need to build those alliances and be trust each other and build proper partnerships that can help us face up to these really quite challenging structural forces. So collaboration and partnership is essential. prioritize the voice of those who are perhaps not heard, empowerment of those who experience trafficking and modern slavery, and just taking care of each other in terms of dealing with topics that can be quite distressing. So it's not just collaboration and networking is good. It's also, why we collaborate and what the values and principles which should guide that collaboration and that networking. Now, I could tell you about some stories of collaborations and networking that have worked well and those that haven't worked well, but I just wanted to focus on sort of two key concepts, which you may well have heard of and which are sort of fairly common currency in this area. The first one is equitable partnership, and that's the idea that we should be more equitable in the way we connect with each other. Now, Rebecca mentioned that I'm working with partners in West Africa, and in fact, across other parts of Africa as well. And it's a real challenge to build successful partnerships when there is such structural inequality in the power relations, in the resources, in the capacity, where myself as a researcher in the UK, trying to work with partners in countries where there's less resources, where the universities don't have the sort of credit that we have in the UK to sort of pre-finance research projects. And what I found really important is just listening to our partners' needs and trying to, include those in how we interact. So making sure that compensation is equitable, making sure that partnership is genuine and is long-standing. It's not just extractive and short-term. And I think that goes for all collaboration and networking, and that we should be in this for the long run. You might well meet someone today who you end up working with and having quite a long relationship with over many years. And actually, it's those people you meet in your early career who end up being your referees or helping you to get promotion and get jobs in later career. So, it's about sustainable, equitable partnerships. And that leads me on to my second concept I wanted to just throw into the mix, which is epistemic justice. And here we're talking about knowledge production, because not only do I benefit from being in a university in the northwest of Europe with all the resources that are attached to that, but if you just look at the structure of knowledge and evidence that exists in the field of trafficking and modern slavery or unfree labor, you notice that many of the authors come from similar countries. And what we clearly need to do is somehow collaborate and work together with partners from other parts of the world to try and generate a more equitable production of knowledge. And I think collaboration and networking is the key to achieving that. And that means thinking carefully about how you co-author and how you recognize the inputs of field workers and researchers. So you might be working with partners in other parts of the world, and as a researcher in the US or the UK, you may well have resources to then do write-up afterwards. Those resources might not be available to someone you're collaborating with. And I think we need to sort of input that into our planning and work out ways to enable knowledge production to be more equitable, because without that sort of sense of epistemic justice, I don't think we're going to move things forward. And just the final point about collaboration and networking is that, if we are to do things differently in this field of study, and if we are going to cast off the perhaps less successful approaches of the past, the ones that have not been effective up to now, and we really make a step change in addressing trafficking and unfree labor, then I think collaboration and networking will allow us to shift our own preconceptions, our own prejudices, perhaps conscious or unconscious, and to think again and reflect on where we might actually be part of the problem rather than part of the solution, despite all our best wishes. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot in my last few years of collaborating with partners across Africa. how can we listen better and collaborate better to actually give away some of the power we perhaps have, and give away that power to enable others to lead. And I think leadership is maybe, a word that's often misused and misunderstood. I think it's really about letting others lead, and collaboration and networking is also about giving away something, not just taking. So hopefully in the presentations today, while we're really listening to your own research, there'll be an opportunity to give away some of your ideas and watch those be taken on board by others, and for you to listen to others' ideas and work together in a spirit of solidarity and alliance, rather than a sort of zero-sum game where we're all competing against one another. And I think in that way, through collaboration and networking, we can try and hope for a more just and a more equitable form of knowledge production in this particular topic, where injustice and inequality is such an important part of why trafficking and unfree labour persists. So I'll leave it there. I'm really looking forward to hearing more of your presentations throughout this afternoon or morning. Back to you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Alex. Really great points for us to be keeping in mind. So thank you for that. We gave thought to how to structure today's research dialogues. Of course, there are many ways to do this: chronologically, by institution, randomly. But to make this time together memorable and valuable, we crafted a narrative of the dialogues to take you on a journey. We will begin with a broad brush and focus our time on appreciating the scale and complexity of human trafficking and unfree labor. How big is the issue? How does it change and thrive across borders? And what challenges do we as a community of practice face when considering our encounters with neighboring issues? Once we gain insight into the scale and prevalence of human trafficking and unfree labor, we will dive down to the level of the individual. Behind each and every number is a person and a life affected. As our presenters will show, different forms of exploitation have life-changing impacts. These effects manifest in the spiritual, emotional, and physical capacities of survivors and/or victims. While scope and prevalence help us see the big picture, individual stories help illuminate the consequences. Following the thematic breakouts, we will conclude with dialogues on what next. What do we do with this information? How can we use alternative forms of story to influence legislation? How does one build a case for reform in political complexity? And what can research help achieve? We curated the discussions and dialogues for today with the graduate researcher in mind. Some of the projects are well developed, even completed, and some are at an earlier stage. We hope that the varying stages of completion will provide you with insight into how others work, how they think, and perhaps most importantly, the parts we can play for each other in the future. We will begin our journey with research dialogues with Tenshi Kawashima, Jiacheng Li, and Hongju Park.